So what is a business-to-business non-strategic purchase versus a business-to-business strategic purchase? This is something I've talked about in my other courses. It's something I've written about, and it's information that's based on the research of James Anderson, who is a business-to-business marketing professor from Kellogg. He's been featured in books by Harvard Business Review talking about strategic marketing. You can see Harvard Business Review articles with him talking about this. And basically, what a strategic purchase is when your product helps a company differentiate their product to their customers. Now, in cases like that, differentiation matters a lot. How you are different from your competitors really, really matters, because you are fundamentally changing how a company distinguishes itself from competitors in the market. And the example I usually cite here is Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout is software for Amazon sellers. It is a strategic purchase. The reason it's a strategic purchase is because Jungle Scout helps Amazon sellers determine what portfolio of products they need to sell to their customers. That is the fundamental variable that distinguishes one Amazon seller from another, the portfolio of products that they sell. But there are lots of things that Amazon sellers do and buy that have nothing to do with differentiating their product. So, for example, automating back-end accounting. That is not a strategic thing. That is not how one Amazon seller distinguishes themselves from another. Problem I see with SaaS a lot of the time is people behave by default because they're oblivious to the fact that there is such a thing as a non-strategic purchase. And so many SaaS are non-strategic purchases, okay? Things that automate your back-end office. Things like plugins for your website. So many of these automated SaaS offerings, plugins, integrations are non-strategic. They're not helping companies differentiate themselves. So when you're trying to market something like that, your positioning shouldn't talk about really high-level benefits like we're going to explode your growth. We're going to revolutionize your business. We're going to make you so much more money and grow your profits. That is not correct positioning. You're not at that high a level. You're a functional offering that does some operational optimization. Don't try to be something you're not. Now, the differentiation you're going to focus on is not fundamentally about your value proposition. It's going to be about things like, do you have 24-hour support? Is your sales process easy? Do you have a money-back guarantee? Is it easy to work with you? Is it easy to integrate? Is this going to be a less pain in the butt for me as a director in a Fortune 500 company to buy your solution because it's less likely to make me look bad? It's going to eat up less of my time. Those types of tactical, operational sales process differentiators are what matter when you're selling a non-strategic purchase. Now, with business to consumer, positioning can look a lot different. Because in cases like this, things like emotion matter more. Perhaps not as much as people tend to think, as I demonstrated when I showed the research from McKinsey, but there's certainly a bigger element of psychological value with a lot of consumer products. And positioning can just move in a very different direction when you're not doing business to business. And then there's hybrid models where basically you need to position yourself to, for example, the business-to-business buyers, but position yourself differently with the business-to-consumer, perhaps through sales enablement that you provide the businesses that are buying your product and then marketing it to consumers. All sorts of considerations with hybrid models. Now, I have a category here that may be irrelevant for you, perhaps more relevant to companies that have been around for a long time, but repositioning. Now, often what you may do when you first start out, before you have tons of funding, before you go public, whatever, is you take some sort of narrow position. And then what we see with companies as they get bigger is you tend to take a broader positioning. So I just wrote some notes here about perhaps your long-term plan. Maybe you have a 10-year or 20-year plan for your business. You're planning to commit to for a long time. Let's talk about what the positioning should be now and then how you kind of see that evolving over time. So, for example, with me, I'm right now positioned in this course as a SaaS marketing expert, which I am. However, I'm also thinking long term that I really want to transform people's lives. I really want to help people, not just with their SaaS businesses, not just with their marketing, but fundamentally with their life. How do they become a better person? But right now, I'm not positioned in that space. I'm positioned as the SaaS marketing guru. But you can see that when you're thinking about long-term horizons, your positioning can get much broader. Okay, so this loosely speaking, this is kind of like a step-by-step how you kind of hone in on your positioning. So you start with product attributes, customer needs, and then you kind of gradually move down, and then ultimately you get to prioritization. And this is where you narrow in on a lot of cases. It might be one benefit, one use case, one job to be done, or it might be a product category. Your positioning could be maybe 3 benefits, 2 benefits, a feature and a benefit, or just one feature if that feature is unique and provides a lot of value. So how you prioritize is one of the difficult strategic decisions you can make, and there are different ways to do it. The gold standard is some sort of quantification model where you've brainstormed all kind of positioning directions at the top, but then you quantify it to hone in on exactly what the positioning should be. But positioning is not just a science, it's also an art. So sometimes your positioning is just an intuitive thing. It's not necessarily a scientific, quantitative process. So one way is to start with just what is the logical positioning. Okay, you've done this brainstorming, you've done this analysis. What seems like the best fit? Another thing to do is to actually quantify each attribute that you have. Usually that's each benefit. Add a financial value to it. So you automate this, you streamline that, you blah, blah, blah. Well, it may turn out that the automation of A and B saves companies $10 million a year. And the other things that you do are barely make a dent in their financials. So your positioning is probably going to be around that, around the $10 million that you save because you do this streamlining or something like that. Sometimes it's hard to do, particularly in startup. Now, if you're a mid-sized company, it's going to be pretty easy because you have a lot of case studies. You have credibility with customers. You can do case study analysis to kind of figure out, okay, how much value was created from each of the benefits you deliver, and then you can hone the positioning around the strongest financial benefit. Now, you can also quantify your attributes in non-financial ways. So it's things like how much time did this save? For example, if feature A saves you 10 hours a week, feature B saves you 20 hours a week, then positioning around feature B probably makes more sense. Or taking the positioning around time savings in general, and then just using the various features and how much time they save as a reason to believe in the positioning. Another way to quantify and prioritize to kind of hone in on your positioning is survey results. So you can go to a website like Sentiment. So what Sentiment is just a website for getting panel data. So for example, you could survey marketing directors, and you can type in a quote request to say, okay, I want 50 responses from VPs of marketing companies with 200 plus employees in the USA, and they'll give you a quote. So you might pay, I don't know, $1,000 to survey these people in your target customer group, and then you ask them 10 questions about above to kind of figure out, okay, what actually matters the most to them, what are their biggest pain points, etc., and that can help you make a decision for your positioning. Now, if you're not that sophisticated, or you don't have that much time, or you're just too agile and you're not sure, you could rely on interview results. So just use qualitative data to make a decision on your positioning. You could use focus groups. So I've done positioning research with focus groups so for example, I did in San Diego, and then I also did in Chicago, and then kind of compared the two. We had different segments. So there were like 3 major segments that we had focus groups for to get the creative juices going among people that were in those given segments. And that helped us give an idea, not just about the positioning, but also honing in on the target customer. as well. So you can couple positioning research with marketing research or market strategy research when you're doing focus groups, because it can be pretty expensive and time consuming. You may want to kind of bundle various research together there. Now, one of the other things to do is you may have different positioning directions you want to go with a new product or a new feature, or maybe a new mobile app version of your desktop product, something like that. One way to determine the positioning is just figure out which one makes the most sense based on the wider company strategy. So that's more of an intuitive or kind of non-survey, non-research based way to determine the positioning. The other thing is just to make a very educated assumption about which attribute creates the most value for the potential buyer. And if it creates the most value, it's probably going to be the best positioning for you. Now, the last way that I have here to prioritize, figure out what your positioning is ultimately, is empirical test results. So you can do things like A/B tests with your email through something like Lemlist, or MailChimp if you're targeting existing people in your database. You can do empirical tests with Google ads, with LinkedIn ads, with Facebook ads. You could do tests through surveys. You could do tests through behaviors. You could do field tests where you're actually putting different positioning, packaging into the market, into stores. And see which ones people buy. You could do it in digital marketplaces, like maybe run, it's not going to be an exact A/B test because app marketplaces aren't going to let you do that. But you could say, okay, we're going to run this one for a week, another one for a week. And assuming there's no huge difference between those weeks, you can say, oh, well, we got much more results from the app listing that focused on X than we did with Y. So that would be an empirical way to determine your positioning.